Hi, loves, and welcome to the With Love Always podcast, a podcast to help you live the life you were created for. We are your hosts and your friends, Bree
and Marissa,
and we're so grateful you're here.
We pray you listen and leave feeling more inspired, encouraged, and uplifted. We should have filmed this episode from bed with tea.
Oh, yeah. We're both down for the count. That would have been festive.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. We are so grateful, as always, that you are with us and tuning into the conversation today. Today is a really special episode because it is one of our final episodes of 2023. This past year has been such a big one, especially for us starting this podcast. And so to kind of come to a close of this year and kind of wrapping up 2023, we thought what better episode to record than to truly just invite you guys into a conversation of this past year of reflection for us and kind of sharing and diving into different lessons we've learned this past year of our lives, both individually but also together. And so we're so excited to dive into the 10 unexpected lessons we learned in 2023. So here we go. I'm going to share 5 of mine. Marissa's going to share 5 of hers. We'll kind of, speak into both of them, but it has been a very big year, I would say, for both Marissa and I. I feel like this was a very unexpected year. Would you say that for yourself?
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like so much has happened in our lives, and that's not true of every year, but I feel like for us individually, like I said, and together, even starting this podcast, it has been a really, really big one, beautiful one, unexpected one, hard one, and we just want to invite you guys into a little bit more of that. And I think, through this past year of starting this podcast, you guys have really been alongside us in the journey and have heard so many in the moment stories of snippets of our year so far. So we're kind of excited to summarize it and just really reflect and press in and hopefully encourage you guys through just sharing some of the lessons that we have learned and gained and earned this year. So with all that said, let's jump into our lessons.
Let's do it.
Also, you guys, in case you can tell, I don't know if y'all can, but I'm not feeling under the weather, but I have a little bit of a scratchy throat. So I feel like in my head, when it's your own voice, I feel like I sound so raspy and nasally. So if you guys hear that, I'm fine. I'm just surviving off cough drops right now. And I feel it's actually so fitting that it's the end of the year. It's sick season and I sound like this, but just bear with me. Okay, to kick us off, I'm going to share my first lesson that I learned this year. And it is the lesson that you are more capable than you think on every single level, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so this year, I don't know how many times I'm going to be talking about it, but I really saw this to be so true in my life in the ways that I truly surpassed my own expectations of myself. As you guys know, and as you guys will continue to hear me talking nonstop about, I ran my first marathon this past year. And I think when I was reflecting on this lesson, I hope you guys never grow tired of me talking about this. I almost feel silly talking about it, but it truly was a moment for me in my life so far that running a marathon is something I literally physically thought I was never capable of, which sounds so insane now that I've done it once and now that I'm actually starting training for my second, and hopefully, which we'll get into goals in another episode.
Yeah.
But hopefully next year, my ultimate goal is to run 2 marathons next year. And I just think about it, if I did not experience this year of my life and experiencing the goal of achieving the physical accomplishment of running a marathon, I to this day would still think I'm physically incapable. And I know that that's kind of an extreme example of being more capable than you think. But for me, that was one of the ways that lesson really manifested in my life this year. And so that just was a tremendous gift, reward that I received in my life this year. alongside that, I mean, this past year was my first year of living in LA. Between, the start of this year, January, I was only a couple months living into LA, to October of this year, I hit my 1 year mark of living in LA. And I think I really learned this past year both the joys and the hardships of being in a new city and, trying to make new friends and trying to build a new life. Like, it really tested my capabilities emotionally and spiritually. And I felt like there were so many moments when I was just almost like in awe of the capacity that I had and the ways that I was more capable than I thought to, I don't know, just kind of readjust to a new life, and all of the beautiful things and also all the road bumps that came alongside with making such a major move in my life. And I don't know, there's something really empowering when you're going through a major change, at least like I did, when you realize of like, wow, if it weren't for these major changes or these really big physical goals, I don't think I would ever have tapped into just how capable I am to sustain myself in all these different areas of my life. And another area that I just realized I was more capable than I thought was, spiritually, and just the spiritual investment that, I pray through this podcast, especially, we both have been able to so deeply invest and just love you guys and love all of our listeners and both our friends in real life and our friends online through just pouring so much of our hearts into this. And I think that's something that before this year, my life never have, given my capacity or given my heart or given my time or given my dedication to something so faithfully and consistently. And in so many ways, I know for the both of us, like, it really was moments throughout this whole year of like, wow, we are so capable to spiritually invest and pour our hearts and encourage. And I don't know, there's just so many moments, like I've said, where I was like, wow, I didn't know that I could do this in so many areas. And it feels really rewarding to have had this year and have had all the trials and the obstacles put into place, all the joys, all the new endeavors like this, to show me of like, you can do so much more than you literally could imagine. So that was a really big, rewarding lesson for me this year.
That's huge. I love that one. And I relate to that on so many levels. It's like you don't know your limits until you're pushed past them.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, that was not my limit. I can go so much further and I didn't even realize. And I think that's what's so cool, if we're realizing that now, like, we are only going to get to experience more and more of that.
Yeah.
That gets me so excited. Okay, for number 2, my lesson actually has somewhat of a parallel to that. It's the best time to start something new is today. You're not too old, you're not too late, you're not too anything, so just go ahead and start it. If you guys listened at all to the You Can't Be Late to Your Life episode, which I think is one of my favorite episodes, you'll kind of be reminded of a lot of what I'm about to say, just because that was such a turning point for me this year. I think a lot of times I held myself back, and I would even think that I was too late to something, whether it was being too late to start a podcast, too old to try new hobbies or new passions, and I was just kind of limiting myself. And what was so special about this year is when I actually pushed past that and stopped buying into that lie that I'm too late to something, and I actually just went for it. I realized that some of my favorite passions, some of my favorite hobbies, I discovered this year, which is so fun, and it makes me realize that I'm going to continue to discover new things that I love. Like, we're just getting started. So that was really special, and that's something that gets me really excited for the future. And honestly, if I have like an inclination, or even if something sparks my interest, whether it's like you were, interested in seeing like, can I run a marathon? I'm like, can I surf? Can we do these things? And it's like, why not just go for it? If you don't like it, that's totally fine. Like, you don't have to stick with something that you just want to try out. And so that's been a huge lesson, and I'm just going to really try to focus on that this next year. And just, if something interests me, why don't I just try? Why don't I just start and go for it?
I love that so much. That's such a good one. So my number 2, but our number 3 lesson is you are making more of an impact on those around you than you could ever believe, imagine, or expect. And I feel like this one actually makes me really emotional because it makes me think of the podcast, and like I'm literally have tears in my eyes right now. But it makes me think of the podcast. And I mean, we started this in May of this year, which is so crazy. It'll be a year, of course, next May. So we're not at the year mark yet. But I think if there's anything that both with the podcast and just to speak into my personal life of since moving to LA and making so many new friendships and building a new life out here, I think that's something that God really took me aback with is just lovingly reminded me is that we are all making such a greater impact than we could ever imagine. I think first and foremost with the podcast, I mean, we can never thank you guys enough for even desiring to tune into our episodes and, choosing to be listeners and choosing to be invited into these conversations. Like that within itself is such a gift, whether we ever know that you have listened or not. But I think something that Marissa and I have been experiencing a little bit more even as of recent is, moments when we're actually, out in public or we're at church or it's a DM that we're receiving from one of you guys of how you found us and you've been impacted by our words. Those are moments that truly like shake us to our core in the most beautiful way, especially moments we've like met you guys in person. We're like in disbelief of like, wait, there's people who are listening, and not only that, they're gaining something and you guys feel like you are a friend to us. Like that is the most tremendous gift, like beyond what we could ever ask for, imagine. And yeah, it makes me really, really emotional because we know that it's just the beginning of what our intention with this podcast is, and hopefully what our intention with what God is going to do through this and through us. And so I think that's been a really big lesson. And I think also, like I said, with my move here, I think I've had so many moments in friendships too where, that's been reflected back on me of, Brie, I've never had a friend like you before, or I've never, experienced this part of God's heart before. And I think especially because I've had so much newness in my life, even those small comments or small moments when, I don't know, someone in LA has called me a best friend. I mean, I do have best friends here now, but it's just, for me, I think it almost impacted me so much because this chapter of my life is so new that it really, like, God put into perspective of, like, how much of an impact my life is meant to have. And I think that goes for truly all of us. Like, I think all of us, we will never be able to fully grasp the true impact that we have on the people around us. And yeah, God has just reflected that to me so much in a beautiful, beautiful way. So I'm very grateful for that lesson this year.
I love that. I do feel like God has been so gracious to allow us to like verbally get that feedback, like whether it's like in person or digitally. There's nothing that feels better, but it is such a reminder that I think the most powerful impacts we have on people, we never know that. We never realize it. Somebody doesn't always express it to us. And so if you haven't received that, like, just know people are so impacted by your existence, by your friendship, by encountering you, by having you in your family. Like, it is just such a blessing that we truly get to change people's lives, like whatever that means for us. Like, our existence truly shapes other people's existence. And I feel like when we surrender something over to God, He is able to move with it just so beautifully.
Yeah. Amen.
Okay, number 4 is how you invest in your quiet moments and everyday routines is what really prepares and equips you for important moments. So to kind of put that a little more concisely, like how you prepare, how you practice is how you perform. And I had always heard that in like a physical sense, where like if you're in sports, they're like how you practice, like how many times you practice, what you put in on, the soccer field is during practice that week is how you're actually going to show up to the game. And that makes a lot of sense. But I feel like at least for this year, what I've been learning is that is so relevant emotionally. Like when we show up for ourselves, whether it's in self-care or the routines we have or the disciplines we have in place, and we stick with them and honor them, even on the days we don't feel like we get anything in return or we don't feel like doing them, I've noticed like I am starting to really see the fruits of that. And whether it's like how I handle, maybe it's like adversity or even like situations where I used to be more like emotional or anxious about them, I feel like some of these just kind of practices I have really allowed me to just handle them, or I guess more so like equipped to handle them, because I think we're all going to go through challenges or times filled with anxiety or things like that. And when we can really prepare ahead of time, I think it really allows us to just kind of show up and be confident in those moments and know we've put in the practice. And so for me, a big discipline this year was just reading the Bible in a year. I feel like I've mentioned that, but it was one of the best decisions I made this year. And already I feel like I'm seeing so many fruits from that. And there were moments where I didn't always feel like reading that day, or I didn't always feel like fuzzy afterwards. I was like, oh, that was a hard reading, or that's hard to understand, or okay, I didn't really get anything out of that. But it gave me such an understanding of God's character and really has equipped me not only in a spiritual sense, but also just an emotional sense. So that is something that even when this year ends, like I can take with me, and I want to continue to obviously study and dig into that, but it's been really cool to already see what an impact an intentional year can have. And so just going to be bringing that energy into next year of, okay, some of those practices that feel kind of rough, like when you start to see the fruits of them, there's no better feeling. It's so worth it.
That's so good. That's so inspiring. And that's something I want to pray about, because I really would love to commit to that next year. I think that was such a beautiful thing that you did so intentionally in your personal quiet time. And I think just bouncing off that quickly, I was even thinking about it like with the podcast too. And I was talking with a friend last night, and Marissa knows that something that I'm notorious with the podcast is I very much operate on a whim. Like, so I feel like I actually am very unprepared going into every single recording, but that's how God uses me the most. But to speak into your lesson that you just shared, I was talking with a friend last night, and he was like, well, Bree, you may feel like you go into podcast recording unprepared, but in reality, you are always preparing yourself, because in your quiet moments and in your day-to-day, you're pursuing God. And it's because you're allowing God to fill you up every single day through prayer, through journaling, through, gratitude, through reading God's word. You go into a podcast recording, and though you may not be prepared for what you're going to say, you are prepared because you've prepared in every single quiet moment before that. And I was like, that is so true. That is so good. And it's
really good.
And it's so true. And yeah, we just want to encourage that too in y'all, like whatever that quiet moment in your life looks like. It's like that truly is the building block for our life. Is like, what are we doing behind closed doors shapes everything in our life. And I've definitely learned that as well this past year in my life. So that's a beautiful point and a beautiful lesson. So lesson number 5 for me is the best moments are the ones you could have never planned for, the good, the hard, and the spontaneous. So we always hear it, life does not go as planned. And while plans, ambitions, hopes, dreams are so beautiful, and I will forever have my own and will ever have my hopes, I think especially when I reflect on this year, I think this was literally the most unexpected year of my life. Like, could not have even taken a shot in the dark of a guess of anything that would have happened to me this year. And it's because of all of the unexpected things that were not in accordance to my own plans. It's truly the reason why this year is as beautiful, transformative, refining, and one of the most like monumental years I feel like of my life, truthfully. And I think it was like some of the things that I could not have seen coming this year. And that, I mean, one of them is running my marathon. Another one is starting a podcast. Another one is, living in a new city. I could never have imagined that, even with moving, that God would literally move me right next to one of my friends here in LA. And then we would become like best friends because God placed me there. I could never have imagined like the friendships I would meet at church and how one friend I would meet, like just 3 months later, we would be going to Europe together. Like nothing that I could have ever expected for this year happened, but because of that, it was literally the most beautiful year ever. And so, yeah, if there's anything that I've learned is like truly hold your plans so loosely, but in that, almost be exceedingly expectant that God's unexpected plans for you are going to be way greater than you could ever imagine. Like, I feel like I'm like sitting in that feeling right now, even as I speak it, and I'm just like in awe of this year because, like I said, even my best dream and best plan for this year was all surpassed because it was so unexpected and so not my own plans for myself.
I feel like this was so much fun, like just reflecting. And I don't know, I was just going back and getting so nostalgic. I love this time of year. I love just like thinking, I don't know, just like celebrating this past year. I feel like it had us both kind of giddy. I just feel like we have so much excitement going into a new year. And I hope you guys feel the same way. And so, number 6 is actually, it's funny because we didn't plan this, but it's so similar. And I just put, God's plan and timeline is not mine, it's better. That is just so true. I'm like, I need that on a billboard.
Yeah, literally.
This is just what I've been reminded of again and again. And I don't know how much I've touched on this, but I would say the first half of this year was kind of like a mundane start to the year. I feel like God was just kind of being like, almost just telling me that I was in a season of preparation. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what's next, but let's see. Second half of this year got a little bit crazy. My husband and I actually both got unemployed for kind of within the same like few month span. So our jobs, careers, honestly, life took such a shift. My husband now, which I don't think I've mentioned yet, works in San Francisco. So that's like 6 hours away and he's there most of the week. So many like unexpected changes. I'm like, I feel like even just a fraction of it, where out of nowhere are like very routine. We had like every day was kind of the same for us. My job got thrown, his got thrown, like it was just so crazy. And although some of those things might seem negative, where it's like, okay, your husband doesn't live with you most of the time now, and it's like, you guys lost your jobs, and there is a lens in which that almost seems negative, but I would not change a single thing. And even amidst it, there were times where I was like, wanted to feel anxious because I was like, God, I have no idea what you're doing. I have it just kind of throws life, finances, plans, everything's kind of up in the air at that point. But I just felt like God was like, I've got you and you just need to trust me. And it was so much fun because we didn't have to work out the details. Like, I really feel like we just got to sit there and enjoy. And I'm still amidst some of the uncertainty, and we're seeing some of it like come together. Some of it hasn't, but I've never just felt so free among a season of so much chaos. And I'm like, that is more of a blessing, more so than like the circumstances. the like unfailing peace that God has just provided in this season has been the biggest blessing and lesson I could ever truly ask for. Like, it has just been so incredible. And so I'm just so expectant of what God is going to do in this next year. And it's probably not going to look like anything like what I think. So I know better than to even kind of plan or put together things, because even we were like, okay, you're going to move up there and I think this is going to happen. And even this week, God's been like, nope, actually it's this. And we're like, wow, okay, we have no idea. We're just going to leave everything up to you because your plans are just so much better.
Praise Jesus. So my next lesson, and Marissa, you kind of spoke into like a similar idea earlier, but my next lesson that I learned are there are sides to myself I'm still learning to fall in love with. And I think that's the beautiful thing about life is that you truly never arrive. Like, we have the rest of our lives to learn more about ourselves and to discover new passions, to discover what we love, to discover what we're good at, to grow in what we're good at. And I think this year, especially, probably because there was so much newness in my life, I feel like the newness inspired more newness. And so this year in my life, I discovered more parts to myself that I honestly didn't even know existed. You know, one of them being falling so deeply in love with running, one of them being like, oh, wait, I love podcast recording and I love talking to people in this way. Like, I always kind of knew that about myself, but I never saw this expression of myself. One of the new things I realized too is I love living alone. Like, I had never lived alone before. And that's like a new thing that I discovered. And another thing that I learned this year is truly how much I love like adventuring and camping and going to national parks and hiking. And though I did a little bit, honestly, not even really like hike or anything growing up, I really wasn't that adventurous, honestly. Like, discovering that part of me now of like, wait, I love being out in the wilderness and I love, having no supplies and being freezing. And I don't know, there's something about the thrill of that. And I just never would have considered myself like this super outdoorsy person necessarily. And discovering that part of myself this year was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know that existed in me. And there's so many other things, like, aside from hobbies and passions, but even just different like facets of my personality that I just got to be a witness of this past year because I'm in a new city, in a new environment with new friendships and new people and new challenges. I think it's just been so tremendous to tap into and discover new sides of myself and new character traits and personality traits and things that light me up and set me on fire that I didn't even know existed in me. And so for me, at least, this past year was really like a new discovery of a new side of myself. And it makes me so excited to deepen those things next year and hopefully to learn more about myself in the next year. But yeah, that's been so rewarding. And I feel like it's almost an obvious because like we are so young, we're in our 20s, but at least I think about in previous years, not that, I mean, every year is full of so much, but nothing that's really shown me a new side of myself necessarily. I feel like I've kind of remained consistent. And so I think this year was really revealing to me of, I don't know, like a new version that I'm like growing into. And it just like, it sounds so silly, but it really just put into perspective for me. Of course, I'm young, but it's like we never stop growing up. We never stop learning something new. And it's such a reward. Like, it really is amazing.
Number 8 is to stop waiting on if blank happens, then I'll be happy. Outcomes don't keep us happy, our outlook does. This year has been such a reminder of that. I feel like you are somebody who embodies that so beautifully. And I don't know if it's just been like, I'm sure in part to you, but also just in part to just reminding myself. And even I know like we did an episode on happiness versus joy. And I think even for me, like putting language to that was just so helpful because I'm like, okay, when I'm thinking of goals, when I'm thinking of the next year, am I in pursuit of happiness or am I in pursuit of true joy? Because ultimately, happiness is an emotion that's going to be fleeting. And I have, for so much of my life, I've chased happiness only to receive those things and then find that, oh, wait, that doesn't actually fill me. Like, I don't have true joy. And so this year, I've just been trying to reframe and just honestly choose joy. Like, not be so focused on the if this thing happens. I know, like, even a year or two ago, or honestly, even now, I still fall into the temptation and I catch myself and I'm like, once we have kids, or once we buy a house, or once I really get my career dialed in, or once we have this amount in our bank account and have more freedom or can travel more, like the list goes on and on. Maybe it's like once I find a spouse, like I think we all have that thing where it's like, once I get that, I'm going to be truly happy.
Yeah.
Like I won't need anything else. Like I just need to get to that place. And I think what I've realized this year is that that has caused me to miss out on so many special things that are happening right now. Like when I'm so focused on the future, which is absolutely my tendency, I'm always thinking ahead. And yes, that can be beautiful to be in anticipation and be hopeful towards the future. But I think just truly being present and pursuing joy right now, even when I am in such an in-between. And I think in our 20s, we're always going to kind of be in an in-between.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us are going to be renting places and jobs are always changing. Life is changing. Families, relationships, dynamics are always evolving. And I think when we can honestly just be bold enough to dig our feet into whatever in-between season we're in and just invest in that, invest in who's around us, invest in finding things we love about that and not being afraid if it goes away next week. I know that was always a fear of mine. Like, I'm going to guard myself because I'm scared, like, if I invest in this friendship, they're going to move. Or if I love this job, I could end up losing it. And there was a part of me that was becoming so guarded that I was missing out on all of the beautiful things that I could say yes to today. And so, yeah, that's something I'm still very much learning. But I think just being in pursuit of joy now and not letting myself indulge in the desire of like, once we get this, I'll truly be happy, because I'm going to be that same person even once I get that thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't change my heart. It just changes my circumstances. So that is something I am continuing to learn.
Yeah, that's such a good one. And I think also, like, in that, it's always, the moment when the blessing does come or the promise comes or whatever it is, we tend to always realize in hindsight that actually more than the blessing itself, we actually loved the process more, and the process of the pain and the waiting and the anticipation and the desiring, because it's because of that in-between season when things aren't what we think we want, that we know once we do arrive to that destination, however near or however far, it makes us appreciate it so much deeper. And it makes us realize, like, wow, if I didn't have to wait, or if I didn't have to be patient, or, be wrong in some ways of like what I thought I wanted versus what God knows I need, then we would never like actually be prepared for that next season of our lives. And so the in-between is such a special time. Like, even though it does not feel special, it can feel like, why am I here? But it's such a beautiful time that, like, one day, I always think about that, even with all the seasons or the things I'm waiting on, the promises I'm hoping for, the prayers I'm, anticipating that will be answered one day. Like, there's plenty of things in my life I'm in the in-between of right now, but I just have to have the confidence that it's because of the in-between and because of the waiting that it'll be so worth it, and joy is in the right now. It's not in the then. So I love that one. It's so good. So number 9, and this is my last lesson, is the heartbreaks of life is what makes life beautiful. And so I think with this past year of my life. Of course, there have been so many beautiful things, but it wouldn't be an honest year of reflection if I didn't mention all the heartbreaks that came along the way, whether it's the heartbreak of a bad day or, a season of extended insecurity, or even just being a witness of different heartbreaks that different friends of mine have walked through, and the pain of walking alongside a friend through things they're struggling with. I'm sure as I'm speaking, like, you guys can even think of your own heartbreaks in your life. Like I said, whether it's a one bad moment in time, or maybe it's been a season of extended weeks, months of this year. But something really beautiful, and it's actually a metaphor that God gave me last night that I want to share with you guys that really inspired this lesson, is for those of you who may follow me on Instagram and may know me well, I live for my sunset walks to the beach every single day. I feel very fortunate to live so close to the ocean. And so yesterday I was going to do my routine walk to the beach, watch the sunset, and then walk back home. But I just got really caught up with work. And by the time I was done, I looked outside. It was already getting super dark. And I knew if I were to leave the house at that point, by the time I get to the beach, it will be dark out. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go anyways. Even though I know I'm going to miss a sunset, which is what I always have the intention to go catch, I'm just going to go. And so I walked myself down to the ocean. And of course, I was right. By the time I got to the ocean, literally the barrier between the boardwalk and the sand, I'm looking out. It's pitch dark out. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and walk towards the shore anyways. And I kid you not, I was the only person on the beach. I was like, where is everybody? Given the sun is setting now 5 p.m. So it's not that it's late in the middle of the night, but it's just so dark out so early here in California. And so I was like, you know what? There's no one on the beach. Yes, I missed the sunset, but I'm just going to go walk towards the shore anyways. So as I'm walking towards the shore, I look into the horizon, and there is a little faint strand of light left. But for the most part, the whole sky is dark. So I'm looking out and just looking at the little glimmer of barely light that is left. It's gray. It's about to turn black. And in that moment, God reminded me, though my intention was to catch the sunset, in my head, I was like, oh, I was too late. I missed it. I missed the moment. I missed the mark. But God reminded me, he's like, Bree, you didn't miss the mark. You didn't miss the moment. You showed up for the moment you were meant to experience tonight. And in that moment, I was meant to experience the darkness. And the metaphor that God gave me was, in our lives, we are always seeking to pursue the sunset moments. We're always seeking to pursue the joyous moments, the good things, the accomplishments, the dream come true, the good days, whatever it may be, the heights of a beautiful experience, a trip, a travel, all these things. We're always looking for the good, the beautiful, the moments in our lives where we feel like our world is full of color. But we have to remember that after those moments comes the darkness. And it's in the darkness, it's in our bad days, it's in our hardships, it's in our anxieties, our struggles, our quiet moments when we feel all alone or we're struggling, or the moments where we feel like we just missed it and we're not where we're meant to be, or we didn't make it in time in our life. It's because of those moments that life is actually that much more beautiful. And it's because of the darkness in our lives that we become lovers of the light. And it was just this profound metaphor that God gave me, that I was like, I was meant to stand and to dwell physically in the darkness for God to remind me of Bree, it's because you have walked through dark moments that you are a lover of the sunsets. And that's just true for life. Because of, like I said, my own heartbreaks I've gone through this year, my own stresses, my own anxieties, the pain I've walked through with other friends and things they're going through. It's because of those really dark moments in time that feel full of despair, of hopelessness. that I can then rejoice to an even higher extent when the beautiful days come and when the days that feel like they're full of life and full of color come, because you know what it's like to be in the dark. And so that just like blew my mind and honestly gave me so much perspective for the hard things that I've gone through this past year. And so, yeah, grateful for the hard things.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is probably one of the most like beautiful metaphors I think I've ever heard.
Oh,
I just want us to end on that note. I'm like, how do I go after that? I will keep the last one, number 10, so short and sweet. And it is, when in doubt, let go and let God. Like I shared, there were so many moments of just uncertainty, so many in-betweens where I was like, I have no idea what our life is going to look like. And I just felt like God just wanted to orchestrate all of the details for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was like, Marissa, you actually don't need to do anything. You don't need to scramble, and you certainly don't need to worry. You don't even need to figure out the little details. Just let me do it. Just sit back and be with me, spend time with me, and I will handle everything else. And it was honestly a lot of unlearning. I think it's harder sometimes to just kind of sit there and be like, okay, God, did I hear that right? Like I was second guessing myself a lot where I'm like, God said this, but I'm like, there's still a part of me. I'm like, maybe I'll keep asking. Like every day I'd be like, God, do you still just want me to like be still? Do you still just want this? And he's like, yes, like I've got it. Just wait on me. And there was so much freedom in that. And that is what, like, kind of how I'm just ending the year of like, wow, I just feel really free because I'm just letting God. Finally, I feel like I don't want to get in his way. I just want him to keep doing what he's doing. And there's going to be hard moments. There's going to be darkness, but I am so excited for the sunsets, and I am going to appreciate them and just soak them up for all their worth and just embrace, honestly, every moment. So that is our final point. We hope you guys enjoyed hearing that, enjoyed hearing our reflections. Like I said, if you've been listening along, like it is so special we get to kind of share this with you, because I know we've shared so many of these stories because they're just moments throughout our year, throughout our life. We just encourage you to do the same. Like it can seem kind of intimidating. Bree like whipped hers out in like 5 minutes and like jotted them down, and I was like, I don't know if I can get to 5 lessons. But even if you just do one and just write it down, I think to look back on that is so fun, and I think to ask your friends and family, it can be really special.
Yeah, we hope this really inspires you guys to take that deep reflection time and to really press into what this last year of your life has embodied and looked like. And we just pray that it can be as fruitful as I know this has been for us individually and together. And hopefully even through some of the lessons that we've learned, maybe some of them apply to your life and you can think of tangible moments in time where you feel like that lesson applies to you as well. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Okay, it is obviously that time of year, my favorite time of year. So we're going to do a this or that holiday edition. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, first question. Gingerbread cookies or gingerbread house?
Gingerbread cookies because I can eat it. The gingerbread house I just build.
Yeah, right? John's family, we like go there for the Christmas time. And every year we have a gingerbread house making competition.
So fun.
And it gets really competitive. His parents have actual grading sheets, like grading papers of like, here's what we look for. And they will go through, they spend like probably 20 minutes at least looking at the houses, grading them. And then they choose a winner. And then we write down like the winner on this little like giant gingerbread, like little gingerbread person.
That's so cute.
I'm like, I think I have to choose the house because it's fun. I get into it. Okay, next one is Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Oh man. I feel like both are so magical. But I feel like I would choose Christmas Day. I just love the feeling of it being Christmas Day. So special.
It really is. I actually, this might say a lot about like my personality, but I remember as a kid, like I loved Christmas Eve and Christmas Day was great, but I would kind of get to the halfway point of the day and I would get kind of sad that like
Sad.
Christmas is over. And so I think if I could live in the like Christmas Eve anticipation state, I just loved it.
I think that's actually a great point. I love that.
Okay, next one is decorating the house or baking treats.
I love both so much, but I would choose decorating because it lasts beyond the treats. But then the treats make the house smell so good. I guess I would choose decorating.
I do really like decorating, but I think what I enjoy the most is just enjoying the decoration.
Yeah.
I enjoy baking more than I do physically decorating.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's a lot of work to decorate.
It is a lot of work.
So I think I'll choose baking treats. For a cozy night in, would you play board games or watch like holiday movies?
I love both so much, but I feel like my family, we tend to watch more movies, which I love.
Yeah, I love watching movies. Games are fun. I feel like I definitely play more games during the holidays.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is very sentimental. But I think I have to choose like a good Christmas movie. Nothing's better.
Yeah, it's the best.
I love. On Christmas Day, are you a PJs all day kind of girl, or do you get dressed up and put on an actual outfit?
Oh man, I'm a PJs all day kind of girl. I'm like, I don't want to get ready.
I know some people get like all dressed up and cute. I will for the eve.
Yeah.
But on Christmas Day, there's no way I'm leaving my PJs.
No, I'm in my PJs all day.
Prime.
Yeah.
Real Christmas tree or fake?
You see, I want to say real, like that's always my dream in theory, but I feel like growing up we always had a fake one, and it was actually so special because we had / still have the same tree we've been putting up for 20 something years, like in my childhood home. And so I think that's really nostalgic for me, but a real tree is like so cool. But I would have to say fake just because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, we switched. We did like real for a while and then we switched to fake. Fake makes way more sense. Like I think
easier.
fake is so much easier, and like especially if the lights are already on it, that's really nice. But we actually started doing a real tree, like my husband and I, this past year, and we're gonna do it again this year. So now I'm gonna say a real tree.
Yeah.
Okay, last and final one. Gift giving or gift receiving?
I feel like I'm someone who I'm always taken aback sometimes when like people give me gifts. I wish I was a more intentional gift giver. I feel like that's actually something that's not like my strong suit. Maybe because growing up we weren't like a huge gift family. So I feel like when I receive a gift, it feels so unexpected for me. Like even during the holidays, I'm like, what? Like you wanted to give me this? So I would probably say gift receiving, actually.
Oh, that's really sweet. Now I'm like, I feel like you'd be an amazing person to like receive gifts. I always kind of like get self-conscious. I'm like, okay, I need to like over animate.
Yeah, you're like, wow.
And I'm like, I feel like people can tell. They're like, Marissa, you're pretty chill normally.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else relates to this. Gift giving, I love it, but it's hard. Like I get gift buying paralysis. I don't necessarily overthink things until I have to get somebody a gift.
Yeah.
And I will full panic. I'll overthink it. I'll ask everybody. Like it takes me weeks to just like prepare because I'm like, I put so much pressure. I'm like, they have to love it. Not even like, oh, I'm expecting a response, but I'm like, I need them to know how much I love them. So like, I can't mess this up. So I would say gift giving because obviously I get really invested in it, but I think I need to relax a little bit.
It is a lot of pressure though. I feel the same way. I'm like, are they gonna like it? Yeah.
But I have never not liked a gift somebody has gotten me because it's just so special. So I'm like, I just need to truly truly chill.
Truly chill. Yes.
Okay, you guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Like Brie kind of mentioned, we will be taking off the last 2 weeks of this year, so there will be no episodes. So we'll have one more episode after this one, and then that is it
For
which is so
2023.
crazy. And then we'll see you guys in 2024, which is wild. But we hope you guys enjoy all of the holidays, and we will see you in our next episode. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening. We pray this episode was encouraging and life-giving. If you found it valuable, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe.
And be sure to follow us along over on Instagram at With Love Always Podcast. Signing off with all of our love always, Brie
And Marissa.